Hey guys, one more time on the video on the Inside Spurs show. Happy Sunday morning to you all. Hope you're all okay. Hope you're all right, and I hope the week's treated you as well as it possibly could have treated you. In this video, we are talking about the news that came out late last night surrounding Spurs having a bid rejected for West Ham attacker Mohammed Kudus. We're going to be talking about how sort of the news come out, what the player feels about it. We're also going to be talking a little bit about the Chelsea interest in Kudus as well. So plenty of good stuff, plenty of stuff to sort of get into and discuss and kind of really sort of, I don't know, converse with one another about. So we'll get to it when we get to it. But yeah, hope you're all right. Hope you're all okay. And hope you're looking after yourselves. Morning, Sean, Sonia, Spurs, Ian, Janice, how are we all? You're right? Look, I'm going to be honest, obviously, you might know that I'm not keen on the Kudus deal for a few different reasons, but obviously had the mindset of that if Frank wants him, then we should be supportive of that. But let's drop the first bit of news that came out, because it came from, I guess if you were to say, if news came from this guy, you sit up and take notice more than probably anyone else. But David Ornstein saying that Mohammed Kudus is prioritising a move to Tottenham if he leaves West Ham. Spurs have had a rejected bid tonight, but talks are continuing because when he put out that it came out, I think it was about 11 o'clock, something like that yesterday. West Ham have tonight received an offer from Tottenham to sign Mohammed Kudus, bid worth 50 million. It's turned down, but direct club-to-club talks continue. Kudus is prioritising the Spurs move if he exits West Ham. Personal terms aren't an issue. Now, look, personal terms aren't an issue. We all know personal terms wouldn't be an issue. He's probably on somewhere between 80 to 100 grand a week. Spurs would give him 130 to 150. Easy work, right? That's not crazy, is it? But the 50 million, I'd like to know the breakdown. Obviously, like we all would, but I'd love to know the breakdown of, add-ons and installments, things like that. I saw reports that West Ham were not thrilled by the offer. They want something closer to 60. Again, is it 60 with add-ons, 60 with what sort of breakdowns? Now, I don't know. It just doesn't feel a great deal still. Just my own personal belief. It doesn't feel a great deal. But, I get why Kudus is one of the guys, that Frank wants. But it is progressing. I see Spurs fans on Twitter complaining about, oh, my God, Spurs haven't signed 7 players yet. Like, we're so slow. And completely disregarding the fact that if you sack a manager and replace him, you're going to have to wait for that new manager to come in and look at what he's got. Because I've always been upfront with you. If Thomas Frank comes in and goes, I really want, Bissouma to stay. We're going to talk about Bissouma because there's interest abroad for him. I really want Richarlison to stay. Then it's super irrelevant what Spurs fans crying on Twitter want. It's how some fans are treating the transfer market is, look, I play FIFA and I play Football Manager, and because I do those things, I can buy players really, really quickly. It's kind of not how the real world works. These human beings you're talking about, it's not a computer AI generated system game. So, yeah, if you see people on Twitter complaining about stuff like that, just try to ignore them. They don't live in the real world, unfortunately. They believe that Spurs should sign 5 players straight away, even before Frank's been signed on the dotted line, because that's what competent teams do. God, Twitter has been boring the last few days from Spurs fans. Been boring. By the way, Apple and elderflower. Get to know it. But anyway, moving on, because Jacob Steinberg has said that West Ham don't want to sell Mohammed Kudus to Tottenham. Chelsea are expected to bid if they sell Noni Madueke, and West Ham are prepared to deal with them. It is funny, isn't it? You know, we're the one London teams don't want to deal with. And I think it's because obviously, of history and things like that. But they all like to deal with one another, but don't want to deal with us. And it's okay. It's cute. It's really cute. You know, you're not rivals, those other three teams, because they like to deal with one another. You're not rivals. You're not. I'd rather sell to this London team. It's like, you're not a rival. I'm going to be honest. The fact that Madueke is getting sold to Arsenal, I see that more so as Chelsea want to free up money and they're not that keen on Madueke. But at the same time, like, how often do those sort of teams do business with one another? So, look, I get it. It's Tottenham, and maybe you don't like Tottenham, but there's a term called rent free, and it's something to do with that, isn't it? Look, it doesn't really matter by this point. West Ham need to be selling, supposedly, we don't always truly know these answers. West Ham supposedly need to be selling due to their financial fair play, and they want to do a bit of a rebuild. And, they got the money from Declan Rice. They've got the money from Kudus, totaling, let's say, 160 million. That's a lot of money for a rebuild. Now, West Ham haven't always been the best at how they spend their money. So they need to be competent with how they do it this time. Graham Potter isn't that guy. Graham Potter had all of his business done for him by Tony Bloom and Paul Barber down at Brighton. So don't rely on him thinking he's going to find you gems in the rough. That was never him. It was never, ever him. It wasn't even the scouts, to be honest. All the scouts were at Chelsea, who Chelsea then go and buy Brighton players still. So, done a really good job with that, haven't they? Morning, Jazz, you all right? But no, I think Kudus. I mean, I saw a report saying that, like, Spurs don't think they're leading the race to sign Kudus. They think they're going to get outbid. I don't think it's for that. I don't think it's that, to be honest, at all. I think Spurs will be going for the Kudus side of things. I mean, look, 30 minutes ago, Florian Plettenberg, Tottenham pushing some Mohammed Kudus. Negotiations with West Ham are ongoing. The winger is very open to a move to Spurs. His agency are leading the negotiations. There are many options, but Tottenham really want him. Saudi clubs are interested, but his goal has always been to move and play at the highest level in Europe. Deal on. Well, there you go. That's another little bit. You've got Ornstein dropping bombers. You've got Plettenberg. You got Romano. Romano tweeted the similar sort of things as those two. Nothing shocking there. It seems like a deal that's progressing. It does seem like a deal that's progressing. You know what I mean? It's just a bit of patience, These sort of deals do take time. It's the amount of people that go, Chelsea got João Pedro done in 3 days. It's like, no, they didn't. No, they didn't. If you think deals are done in 3 days, you are bonkers. Even Spurs, like, we signed Anton Kinski. Oh, I came out of nowhere. Yeah, it's not like they offered a deal. Sorry, they offered they made an offer and it got accepted and then got announced. No, they've been working on that a little while. Sometimes it just doesn't have to be loud, So on Kudus, they've been working on this a little while. It's going to be a little while longer yet. But it does feel like this will be. It does feel like this will be the first marquee signing. I know obviously got Takai, but Takai obviously doesn't feel like a marquee signing. I'm being nice there. I'm not trying to be mean. Kudus does feel like that the marquee signing that we were thinking about. I keep getting Atletico Madrid reports around Romero, and it's just absolute nonsense. I rate Atletico, like it reminds me of this will remind me of Real Madrid with Bale, right? And it was constant. News was constant, basically tapping up players and things like that, allegedly. No, I'm not getting sued by Perez. I haven't got the money to pay him off. But it's what they do. They use the press and media to drive the price down or to push the deal forward and to get from it. And you would hope Daniel Levy, from all those times, all those times of being basically manhandled by Madrid, that he just sort of has a backbone now to say, I'm fed up with the noise coming out of that side. You want him? The deal's gone up an extra 10 million, an extra 15 million. And they'll go, what are you on about? You gave us you keep leaking this to press. You keep annoying me. The deal's just gone up even more. Training today. Yeah, some of the players have already been back. Some of the players have already been back yesterday. Seems like, the start of the new season really is sort of between the next couple of days. Obviously, it's great. It's great to have it back, but it feels like, why does Bilbao feel so long ago? I know if Bilbao wasn't the last game of the season, but it feels so long ago now. I mean, I still think about it. I still ride the high of European champions and everything like that. But it does feel like such a long time ago that Bilbao game was played. Champions League football. It doesn't even feel like we got Champions League football this year. I just feels weird. Feels weird. Deal take week. Absolutely wreck. How are you? DJ, how are you, big man? The fruit squash champ. Where's he hiding? Mate, there's no squash up here today. There's apple and elderflower sparkling water. That's all I got for you, Chief. Hey, Adventurous mate, how are you? Be careful your words. If Levy hears this, he won't sign any other player this summer. Won't be having that. Won't be having that. I'm still waiting for a friggin' left back. Oh, that's so. Can you imagine if we're August 6th and we haven't got left back signed? I think I'm going to panic. You promised me something, Daniel. No, Kudus isn't done. Bids have been offered. Bids have been rejected, but Kudus isn't done. No. Yeah, Milton, agree. RIP to the guys. We signed 11 left backs. Robinson's on your way, Andy. Robinson squash. That's what's on the way. It won't be Robinson the fullback. We're sure paying if we don't have a left back. So, honestly, it's not me fear mongering any of you, but I just can't go into another season without a left back. So this is impactful for Kudus. Telegraph is saying that Chelsea are expecting to field offers of more than 50 million for Noni Madueke. Arsenal are advancing in talks for the winger. More than 50 million. That doesn't feel like a very good deal. See, I didn't mind the idea of Spurs getting Madueke, but it was that he's not worth 50 plus. It's like 40 million is probably the highest I'd be, but over 50 million. He's been there for however many. He's 1 year, 2 years there. He's doubled in price. That's mental. Absolutely mental. I think Arsenal are getting a raw end of this deal. And I also think, Nwaneri isn't going to, he's actually not, apparently Nwaneri, their talented youngster, apparently he's not going to sign a new deal because he wants guaranteed first team football. And Chelsea want him. And it's like, Nwaneri, do not go to Chelsea. You will not be getting guaranteed football. They have 8,000 players to play in that squad. You are not guaranteed first team football. You're better off going to, I don't even know, to be honest. But don't do Chelsea. You're not going to get first team football, lad. A GoFundMe page for a left back. Oh, we're down bad. We are down bad. For me, left back isn't the highest priority. We have 3 top fullbacks. Mate, we need 2 players of quality for every position. That's what you need. And a doggy gets injured every single season, so you'll have 2 fullbacks going forward playing 2 to 3 times a week. We need a fullback. What do I think about the Kudus transfer? Look, I'm not keen on Kudus. I'm not. I've said at the start of the video, if Frank wants Kudus, then we should all want Kudus. I think you can get better value. I think you can get better value for the output that you got last season. You know, I get the people that go, look at his 23-24 seasons, go, that's great. We're in 2025. Can we look at his last season to give us an idea of how he's been, the more recent form, you know? And I don't, I think you can get better value. But if Frank wants him, we should want him. That's the way I view it, you know? Because actually, think of it this way: the amount of times we complained about players being linked to Spurs through different managers, and it's club signing, club signing, club signing. This feels like a brand new link, doesn't it? So this feels like a Thomas Frank has had input on this a little bit. Not say he would have had like a huge input, but he's had an input to say, actually, yeah, I would like him. And that's important. Because in other clubs who have had really successful like transfers done, like Brighton, when they're Potter and De Zerbi and things like that, they didn't give the power to the managers because they had a system in place by Tony Bloom to allow them to buy players who fit Brighton, right? Spurs don't have that because Spurs are run by idiots. Therefore, the recruitment is so poor. So you might as well just give it to the manager because do you know what? At some point, one of the managers is going to get it right because the higher ups can't. So one of the managers will get it right and we'll be away. We need to make space. We need to make space. We do. Yeah, there's gonna be a good few players leaving this summer. Even an average player is being equated 50, 60 million. I know. I've got a friend that is a Chelsea fan says to me that Kudus Prime start for every team in the top 5 Premier League. Well, he might start Arsenal at left wing, but he wouldn't start over Saka. I wouldn't have him at City. I wouldn't have him at Liverpool starting. United don't really play a system for him, but play for United. I'm talking about like the main top 5, but like if you're talking about like Newcastle, he probably would. But he'd start on the right wing, not left. Gordon's obviously on the left wing. Chelsea, no, he wouldn't start at Chelsea. Who else finished in the top 5? No, I think I've got everyone. Yeah, I think I've got everyone. Petition for me to be recruitment. Here we go. The new goalkeeping coach. Don't know enough about him, Chief. Don't know enough about him, Callum. Who do I want instead of Kudus? Doesn't matter what I want. It's what Frank wants. He's the guy that does the job. So if he wants him, then I want him. And I was like that with Ange, and I was like that with Conte. If this manager wants this player, we should want him because this is a guy who believes in this player is going to help him achieve the level of success we want. I've been really on it with that. I've been really fair with that. I've been really consistent with that. There's been players that Ange signed that I wasn't blown away by. There's players that Conte signed that I wasn't blown away by, but I supported them because that's what the manager wanted, and that's how we should all feel. Is there players in our mind that maybe are better suited for value and things like that? And yeah, of course. Now, I don't think for a second every Spurs fan sits there and goes, Kudus is the best player we could sign. But if that's what Frank wants, then that's what Frank wants. That's all that matters, you know? West Ham are a basket case. Yeah, but if you're spending 65 million on a player, it doesn't matter. It's a basket case. You need to deliver some success, even if it's just personal success. Bournemouth finished, 12th, and we signed Solanke for 65, but he had 22 goal contributions, you know. Everton weren't great. We signed Richie. Should have signed Gordon. That's irks me ever since, really. It's easy. Pay the release clause. No, definitely not. I don't think any Spurs fans on God's green earth will be happy about 85 million. Spurs just pay how much West Ham want. Well, again, you don't do that. That's not how business works. We should be seeing players walk out the door the next 2 weeks. Yeah, no, exactly. So look, in the next 2 weeks, I expect Spurs, especially outgoings, to get a lot busier due to obviously Frank then seeing the players, training the players, looking at what he's got. Yeah. Yeah, I think we're going to be busy the next couple of weeks on outgoings for sure. If you had to recommend Frank a player, who would that be? Don't know, mate. Don't know. I'd start at left back. Kirkes would have been great, but he's gone to Liverpool. I like Robinson, but age and cost. There's quite a few. Like Eze, you can always rattle off Eze's, and I mean, Javi Simmons would be the main one. He'd be the marquee guy that I would want. You think there would be synergy between Frank and Johan? There probably is. There probably is, but things take time. How are you, Marshall? You're right. Peace out, Milton. I still think that may be better than Eze deal just because Eze is more like a 10. Look, clearly matters for that. Well, other teams also view Eze as a left winger. And for ages, I said, yeah, Eze can play on the left wing. And Spurs fans went, no, he can't. And it's all right. Top 5 teams in the league last year have come out and said, yeah, no, we view him as a left winger as well. It's like, oh, damn. I might have been right about something. Mohammed Kudus, elusive right foot. How are you, mate? Look, but no, on Kudus, I will be just truthful that I support the deal. Is it the deal that I'd like? No, but I support the deal. Interesting though. Like I was thinking about outgoings a little bit over the last couple of days. It's been a bit flat out with work, so whilst I've been in a quiet moment, I was thinking about outgoings, and I was thinking about how Frank is going to want to not sit down, but like watch the players, see what he's got. And I'm going to come to Bissouma in a minute on the transfers because I forgot to do it. Solomon, players like that. I'm interested to see how he deals with that. I'm interested to see how he deals with Solomon, to us, because there's money to be made there. There's teams that want him, and you can make 15 million. I'm interested to see what he does with that. I would love to know if someone above him kind of goes, mate, if you're not going to really use him, or you're going to use him a bit, we're going to sell him. He either is a first team starter or he's not. We're selling him. Buy Mike Simmons. Yeah, that was horrible injury for Musiala yesterday. Horrible injury. We shouldn't be playing. I'm sorry, that tournament shouldn't be being played. Players have played all season. That tournament shouldn't be played. It's absolute crap that tournament's being played. Shouldn't be happening. Shouldn't be happening. What is Kudus missing? Well, after last season, output, goals and assists. Couple of big things. Right, let me find the Bissouma news. Sorry. Because... spell Bissouma, right? There we go. Because the Gazzetta in Italy have said that Juventus are interested in signing Yves Bissouma this summer. Now, I was thinking about this because obviously Douglas Luiz has flopped a little bit at Juve. They don't really like him. He's overpriced. He's not been very good. All that stuff. And no, I'm not going to want Douglas Luiz at Spurs before someone asks. And I've always talked about, if you've kicked around on the channel for long enough, I've always talked about Bissouma and, he'd do well in Ligue 1. I think he'd do well in the Bundesliga. The Serie A being such a, like, in terms of pace, such a slow league, he's going to look really quick in that league, and I think he'd be really good there. Really, really good. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know Juve's financial fair play situation. Okay, I'm not. I know they've always been a team that's happy to pay decent wages, but on transfer fees, do they struggle? I think he would do well in Italy. I do. I think there are lesser players that have gone to Italy over the last few years and done really well. I think Spurs can make 15 to 20 million on this deal, like they did with Pierre Højbjerg. It's a player that, if Frank doesn't want, you get him off the list. All right, it's another one that's off the list. You get money in through the door. Spurs supposedly have cash flow issues, which is, what it is. I'm not going there. It's an easy deal. I think he would want the deal. It's Juve. It's a big team. It's an Italian giant who, look, they've not been great. They've not really been great since Paratici took them over and ran the club, really. They were on the downward swing there. A very old squad that didn't really get much younger and much better. I think Biss for 3 years out in Italy could do very well. Yeah, I could see it's been a really good move for him. How many times are you going to get linked to another big team late into your career? Well, not late. He's not late into his career. Like, he could play for another sort of 6, 8, 10 years. Maybe not at the top level, but he could play for a long time. But in terms of like big moves, where you're at the just over the middle part of your prime, this is a good, and he's going to get paid good money. Nice city, good foods. We all know Italian food's good. Why not? Well, Liverpool wanted him because he had good success last year. Liverpool don't want him this year because he didn't have very much success. They're offering 2 players to get Sancho. Sancho would be good in Italy. It's a slower league. You know what I mean? Like, these players are so used to quicker leagues. A slower league, I think a lot of these players do really well. But like Scott McTominay, right, wasn't great at Man United. Wasn't a player that could get on the ball and dictate play and things like that. Napoli gets him. He's turned into a rock star. Slow league. He looks quick in that league, right? Bissouma would look really twitchy and quick in that league. Yeah, I think it's a good move. If Frank wants to keep him, Frank wants to keep him. But if this is a move that Frank is going to sign off on in terms of selling the player, I think you take the money, you cash in, and you run off from it. It's good money. Like, I was thinking, like, Solomon, it's good money. Solomon's 15 million. Biss, let's say another 15. It's 30 million off 2 players that you're not going to use. And this is what the big teams do, if you don't realize. Like, a lot of big teams, they're not going to use a certain player. They just move off of them, get money out of them. Even though it may not help their financial fair play, it'll completely help their cash flow. And they will never have a worry of, can we make a bid this summer on this player? Because they always have the money flowing around. Spurs hoard players, use them up, lose their value, and then they go for nothing. And that's the issue. So let's not do that. Let's sell them a season too early than a season too late. This is a season maybe too early in regards, but you've got 1 year left of his contract. So it's now or never. It's either you sell him this summer, and this is the key thing with Biss and Bentancur. You sell him this summer or you extend them. So you don't lose money on them. We'll see if they do that, Yeah, I think anything. Yeah, I've already said my thoughts on Kudus and the value, David, but probably similar to you. McTominay was massively underrated at Man United. I think there's a few things. May not and obviously weren't great at the time. Toxic and things like that. He wasn't great at Man United though. Like, it's not all Man United's fault. He wasn't great either. You know, and players sometimes do well when they move away from Man United, and that's fine. Players do well when they move away from Spurs, and that's fine. That's normal. That's what football's about. Um, but he's found the league that suits him, a slow league where he can look a bit more dominant. Like he wouldn't, this level of success he's having, he would never have in the Premier League. I'm going to be honest. I mean, he's one of the best players in Italy. He's never, ever, 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 ever going to be one of the best players in the Premier League. He wouldn't even be one of the best players in a team in the Premier League, you know? But in Italy, completely suits him, and you can see it works. And that's what we're talking about, like Sancho. Sancho's great in the Bundesliga. It suits him a bit more. Not as much in the Premier League. And that's fine. Doesn't mean they're bad players, just means some leagues suit other players more than others, you know? And that's normal. Absolutely normal, you know? But anyway, look, thank you so much for joining me this morning. Absolute bloody legends. Please go and enjoy the rest of your Sundays and the rest of your weekends. Look after yourselves. Enjoy the F1. Obviously, British F1 is on in a couple of hours. So please enjoy that. And I'll speak to you all at some point through this week. It's a busy time in my life. We'll obviously get together and talk a lot more about Spurs. Look after yourselves, and I'll speak to you all very, very soon. Take care. Peace.